we went to the first person to diagnose me, and she decided that because I make money with my special interest or my passion in life, that I couldn't possibly be autistic or have Asperger's at the time. So it hurt some people, or some people didn't understand it because if I said I was high functioning autism, people would think that, like, oh, I don't experience autism very much, or I don't, they say things like, you don't look autistic, you don't seem autistic, and things like that. And it became a bigger issue.
Well,
So
what do you think of the terms of high functioning and low functioning?
I don't like functioning labels. Get a part time job somewhere. If I say I'm autistic, then oftentimes people think the worst, and they think, how could you possibly work here if you're autistic? So
Hmm.
in those scenarios and job interviews, it's unfortunate, but I have to say I'm high functioning, or I have high functioning autism. And when I say that, it kind of lessens the blow to them, and it gives me the opportunity for a job.
You weren't always like this as you were dealing with depression, not being properly diagnosed with autism, self-harm, and having a severe skiing accident where you spent months in the hospital. So what was the bigger turning point in your life? Being in a ski accident or being properly diagnosed with autism?
There was a turning point in my life because instead of being filmed and taking turns with my friends filming each other, I then put myself behind the camera and focused on filming my help others with their life, let them know they're not alone, inspire them, and just let them know there's hope that you, as an autistic person, there is hope for just living a fulfilling life. It's not just the end of the world. Getting diagnosed with autism, I think that was huge for me because it answered who I was as a person, and it was a big turning point because I realized that there's nothing wrong with me. It's just that I'm wired differently than people, and because I'm wired differently, it's just life looks different for me. At a certain point when it was affecting my career, I then realized like how much more effort I need to put into my life to make my life better on top of the medications. So after many years, probably over 10 years of looking for the right medications, we finally found the right ones. And I think my most proud work right now is probably Thriving on the Spectrum. That one got in 20 film festivals around the world and won 5 awards.
Hello, welcome to my podcast, Two Mics, One Joe Stooge. I am Joe Stooge, and I'll be giving a mic to Scott. Scott is a late diagnosed autistic filmmaker. He has produced 5 films, for each has won an award. Scott is currently 12 years sober, so a huge congrats to you.
Thank you.
Let's start with the bullshit diagnosis story you had when you had to go to the autism test twice at the age of 24.
Yeah, so my psychiatrist at the time told me that she believed I had autism, and I at first she told me there's really no reason to get diagnosed because there's no supports in place for me. And at that point I was so far in rock bottom with depression and stuff that I was like, I want to know what's wrong with me. And at that, I don't think anything's wrong with me now. Back then when I was so depressed and just bad mental health, in and out of psych hospitals and stuff, I just really wanted to know what was going on. So we went to the first person to diagnose me, and she okay, I'll start that over. We went to the first person to diagnose me, and she decided that because I make money with my special interest or my passion in life, that I couldn't possibly be autistic or have Asperger's at the time.
Really?
So
There's so many autistic people that do make good money here. I think like Elon Musk is, well, he unveiled his diagnosis really late, but Yeah, he's making billions, so the
Exactly.
sky's the limit for you.
So she made a judgment call on her own that was never it's never been written in any book or anything. It's
It's
just
so
like
unprofessional.
so unprofessional. She just made the decision, well, because Scott makes money doing filmmaking, you can't possibly be autistic. So they gave me extreme lesser end of like autism and Asperger's, which is pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified, or
Hmm.
PDD-NOS. But at that point, it was just like, even my psychiatrist was like, this is crazy that she would think that. So because she decided to diagnose me with PDD-NOS, I now wouldn't qualify for any potential disability benefits in the future. And then, let's see, fast forward a couple years later, I got tested again. The person who diagnosed me was just like, he's definitely on the autism spectrum. He's definitely autistic. And she's like, it is absolutely crazy that this person diagnosing people is determining whether people are autistic or not because they're making money doing their special
Well,
interests or
I hope you
passion.
reported that person because that's really unprofessional, and I'm sure they hurt a lot of other people before you
Uh,
and after you.
Definitely. I mean, if she's making these judgment calls with me, who knows what kind of fake judgment calls she's making with other people. So,
Saying that you were depressed and you were trying to find something that was wrong with you, and then
yeah.
you got diagnosed with autism or Asperger's. And the first time, so did that help you with your depression, or was it more of a like, kind of like a little shaky ground still?
I mean, I was still struggling, but I also look at it as it helped me in the way of letting me know more about myself and what kind of therapy I could use to help me out in my life. And while I was still struggling with depression, it also made it so that I could just begin to get the proper support that I need. So it kind of like grounded me in a way.
Oh, so you got so kind of like you got your feet wet a little bit, and then I guess your psychiatrist was like, you need a better diagnosis, so you went to a different doctor, and then they diagnosed with you with, I guess, it. I'm not an autistic, so do they just diagnose you as autistic, or they're like, I know Asperger's is like
So at the
the lesser autism, so they're like a middle autism, and they're like an extreme and autism.
so at the time there were levels of autism. It was PDD, NOS, pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified, which no one knows about, and that's on like the lesser end. Then there was Asperger's in the middle, and then there was autism more on the extreme side at the time. And then eventually, I think a few years or several years after I was diagnosed, they then released the new DSM book and they removed Asperger's, PDD-NOS, and everything became the autism spectrum. And so that was good and challenging in the beginning to get used to because there is a wide range of people
Yeah.
on the autism spectrum. So
Hmm.
I think for me, at first, it took some getting used to because there are such a wide range of autism, and no two people with autism are exactly the same. But
But
I
also
think
the language had changed too of how to diagnose someone with it.
the language changed, and then people at first were using functioning labels like high functioning autism, low functioning autism, but then that became an issue because it could it hurt some people, or some people didn't understand it because if I said I was high functioning autism, people would think that, like, oh, I don't experience autism very much, or I don't, they say things like, you don't look autistic, you don't seem autistic, and things like that. And it became a bigger issue.
Well,
So
what do you think of the terms of high functioning and low functioning?
I don't like functioning labels. I mean, they served the purpose when the DSM changed in the beginning, but now myself and many other people I know that are my friends refer to themselves as autistic. Just kind of that person first language or diagnosis first language. So I refer to myself as autistic these days, and every now and then there's a place and a time to use a functioning label, because while I don't like to, if I'm looking for a job, if I'm trying to get a part-time job somewhere, if I say I'm autistic, then oftentimes people think the worst, and they think, how could you possibly work here if you're autistic? So in
Mm-hmm.
those scenarios and job interviews, it's unfortunate, but I have to say I'm high functioning, or I have high functioning autism. And when I say that, it kind of lessens the blow to them, and it gives me the opportunity for a job. If I just said if I said it the other way, it leaves a lot of space for judgments and assumptions. And so I believe there's a place and a time for everything, but ultimately I believe saying, for me, I refer to myself as autistic, and that's where I'm most comfortable.
Seems that it has to be important to distinguish between high functioning and low functioning. Because you said earlier that there's a huge spectrum of autism, and it's just hard since there's no like we have Asperger's, which is on the lower end, and then we have kind of like everywhere else. So like you need something to like distinguish between everything because there's like disabilities too. You can have severe disabilities and you can have light disabilities too. I
Yep.
think there has to be something just for the general public to understand because most people are not going to want to, they don't have the time or they don't want to, they don't have a need to learn about autism like it affects everyone. They kind of see autism as it is. And I think just to help with adjectives, would it help someone understand it more? Kind of like blindness. Like people will say they're legally blind, but the first thing you think of, oh, they can't see anything. But in reality, some can see, it could vary from like, they can see like 90% of vision and or 10%. So it's such a weird, I think there has to be more adjective and more descriptive words to this. I think it helped the general public too because they can't learn everything either. Like there's so many diseases, like it's almost hard. Like I feel like sometimes the disability putting too much on the general public because there's just so much to learn, and not everyone meets an autistic person to learn about. But if I would, let's say, working in like a daycare for autism people, yeah, it would help that I understand it. But for a regular person,
Yep.
especially a job interview, like if they're just interviewing hundreds of people, I think it would just help to say, hey, I'm high functioning, I'm low functioning. Did what I can do, did what I can't do. I know, like, I've been following you for a long time, and you say that, like, loud noise, it really affects you a lot of times.
Hmm.
And so, like, you'll say, like, hey, I'm high functioning, but, there might be days where, like, I just need, like, a room to, like, debrief or, like, have to go home earlier and I just can't handle it. Maybe you will understand it, but, like, hey,
I
I need these things.
think where it comes in these days is ultimately, like, yeah, there's a time and a place where I want to explain to people, even in the dating world. It's just like
Mhm.
when I met my girlfriend now, I referred to myself as high functioning autism, because
Okay.
it's just like, in
It's
that
a,
scenario, as much as I just want to say I'm autistic, in the dating world, if you say you're autistic to a neurotypical who doesn't understand what autism is,
yep.
they're going to assume the worst, and automatically you're not going to get a second date. And it's just like, so I understand how in the autism community or the autistic community, whatever, It's just like we want to be proud and like comfortable with who we are and have more acceptance. But the reality is, not everyone in the world is going to understand that or follow
Mm-hmm.
this. So, if you really want to be in a relationship, if you want to find a job, sometimes you do have to adjust your language. And then you can start your language with, I'm high functioning autism, just to lay the ground because that kind of relaxes some people in the beginning. But then over time you can adjust your language and you can teach people over time and there's more
Mm-hmm.
acceptance with it. But
I like how you're saying that you were always upfront with your autism. Cause it would be I'm not autistic, so I can't really say, but I could imagine that you could not say anything and you just say I'm Scott and I'm here for X job and what do I
yeah,
have to do? Like not even mention anything about autism. So I like how you're saying like, hey, I am high functioning autism. I may need some accommodation. I don't know what your specific accommodations are, and it also varies person to person. But have you always been upfront about your diagnosis?
yeah, for the most part, yes, especially these days because I require certain accommodations at work.
Let's talk about your accommodation. What
Yeah.
do you require?
So I had the most amazing HR human resources person at my last job before I quit to pursue film more. As much as I didn't want to do it, I ended up working at a Sprouts Market for it's like a grocery store. I worked there as a cashier for about 4 months, and I also had a job coach and through disability. So my job coach would kind of hover around and be there for support, and she was great. And then, but the HR person, she really listened to us because I have issues with going outside into hot heat and then coming indoors. So, like, pushing shopping carts would give me sensory issues because I have issues with sweating. And it's just like, so they accommodated to me and made it so I don't have to gather any shopping carts. Like, I just work indoors. And then there were other times where there were huge messes from customers. And one time a customer dropped like 24 eggs in front of my counter, and instantly I have sensory issues to touch and stuff. And my employees, my coworkers were able to help me out with that because it would have been too much for me. Also, relate autism is a cognitive disability, so I had a lot of struggles with customers. Not a lot, but there were customers each day that were really hard to work with and would almost bully me. One of them was really messed up to me, but my typically during my work hours, during a 6 hour, how many hours did I work? During a 5 hour shift or so, I was only allowed one break, but the HR department adapted that to me and said, if you need a breather at any moment, you can just put up this sign saying be back soon. So they're like, whether you take one break today or you take four, we do not care. We want you to take care of yourself and be comfortable here. And then the other accommodation the HR person gave me was unlimited mental health days. And you don't get that many places. She's just like, look, if you're feeling depressed today, if you're feeling down, take the day off. I would rather you show up to work for 2 or 3 good days this week than struggle for all four. So, this human resources person was just amazing to me, and I I wish there were more people like her because it's hard to come by that. And since I've left Sprouts and she eventually left that store too, we actually became good friends. So we're still in touch, and I wish there were more people that existed like her in the workplace.
I mean, I guess the accommodation was is good, but like where does the line fall where it becomes too much that you're not able to get the job done? 'Cause it seems like if they fire you, for example, then you will say like, "Oh, they can't accommodate me and such." But on the same time, sometimes it would seem like, let's say you took like a whole week off because you couldn't handle the work job, so that wouldn't that fall in your lap saying that you can't do the job and they will have to release you and find someone that can do the job? Because there's like
Yeah,
a fine line between.
within reason, but that never happened. I never took a whole week off like that. It's like I took at most a day off. Most weeks I showed up all the days, and it's just like the reason she wanted to give me unlimited mental health days isn't this expectation that I'm just going to take 4 days off one week. It was because she didn't want me to stress for the whole year. Like if I ended up working there for a year or longer, she didn't want me to stress about taking 1 day off that week because now I'm using up the total amount of days. And now I'm trying to keep track of that. She wanted me to feel comfortable taking 1 day off if needed.
Yeah, it just seemed like she wanted to give you like that you are free to do it, but maybe she saw something in you that you wouldn't abuse it, but
Right.
she
She
wanted to
knew
give you that like safety net almost.
exactly. She knew I wasn't going to abuse it. If I were taking 4 days off every week, then absolutely not. That wouldn't work. But she wanted to give it to me as that little safety net for me to feel relaxed about taking a single day off or leaving work early one day so that I'm not worried that, oh no, we're only through the first 3 or 4 months of this year and I've got 2 more mental health days for the whole year.
Well, it seemed that you are stable now with your health and stuff, and you could say due to your therapy, but also having good cocktail of medicine to keep you stable and doing your job effectively and enjoying life. You weren't always like this as you were dealing with depression, not being properly diagnosed with autism, self-harm, and having a severe skiing accident where you spent months in the hospital. So what was the bigger turning point in your life? Being in a ski accident or being properly diagnosed with autism?
I'd have to say both were turning points for different reasons. All the ski accidents were a big turning point for me because originally I used to try to be filmed and I wanted to become a professional skier, but or even just a sponsored skier, and it's just like that never worked out. And I broke so many bones. So because of all the injuries, I
Yeah, I have here you broke your back, two arm, tore a couple of muscle. You
yeah,
had place put in your face. Like that's crazy.
yeah, the total is broken back and 2 broken arms and 1 injury, broken leg, dislocated kneecap, broke my right wrist again, blown out lower orbit in my eye socket, tore like 4 muscles in my upper leg, and I'm sure there's more. Sometimes I lose track.
I mean,
But
that's a shitload of injuries though for
yeah,
one person.
yep. And but yeah, where the ski injuries were helpful for me, I don't want to say they were helpful, but there was a turning point in my life because instead of being filmed and taking turns with my friends filming each other, I then put myself behind the camera and focused on filming my friends who eventually some of these skiers competed in the Olympics, the X Games, and just I think the big turning point there is I found my passion for filmmaking. I found my career in filmmaking, and it started in action sports, and then eventually it moved to documentary work, and I created my first memoir slash documentary called Autism One Man's Journey, and that got noticed by film festivals. And then I just found a lot of just joy and passion in using my story and other people's mental health stories and autism stories too. Just help others with their life, let them know they're not alone, inspire them, and just let them know there's hope that you, as an autistic person, there is hope for just living a fulfilling life. It's not just the end of the world. And so that's where the ski injuries came in, which was finding my passion in filmmaking and
Were
not
you
in.
actually a good skier? Like, was there a real future in it, or was it more of a pipe dream for you?
I'm a good skier. I just the hard part for me was learning the tricks and so the jumps and stuff. I pushed myself too far and broke too many bones and but yeah, I'm a really good skier. I can ski all sorts of terrain and I ski in the
Well, hopefully on
backcountry.
snow.
Oh, definitely. But these days being 36 years old, I tend to keep my feet on the ground and I like to just carve turns and ski steep terrain, but I don't push myself anymore to have I don't push myself anymore where I'm going to injure myself. That's I ended up finding my passion in filmmaking and honestly where even that took skills is just like when filming in the backcountry I was skiing with about a 60 to 70 pound backpack down these terrain,
Oh my god.
and every now and then I'd have to go off a little cliff or something to get to an area. And I think where filming skiing got tough for me, and I ended up going a different route, is I started having friends die left and right in avalanches and stuff like that. But that's a whole nother story. That hurt the mental health again. But as far as getting diagnosed with autism, I think that was huge for me because it answered who I was as a person, and it was a big turning point because I realized that there's nothing wrong with me. It's just that I'm wired differently than people, and because I'm wired differently, it's just life looks different for me, but it's also become there's certain positives with being autistic that have made my filmmaking career easier, I believe.
Would you
And
consider autism to be a pro or a con in your career?
I'd say it's a pro in the let's start with this. Where autism is hard in my career is the communication. So having Zoom meetings, having organizing post production stuff, it can be overwhelming at times to have all these meetings and comprehend what's going on or even know when to jump into a conversation. So communication's always tough with being autistic. Um, but I have a person that works for SMK Media, a neurotypical who's a professional audio engineer, and he shows up to a lot of Zoom meetings with me and will help just advocate for me and pay attention. And when it comes to actually editing or filming, I believe autism is a pro. I have very amazing like attention to detail that a lot of people don't have. I notice a lot of things people don't, and with that sort of attention to detail, it really makes whether it's cinematography or even editing, noticing these fine details, like I believe being autistic has really helped that. And then the other thing is hyper focus. I'm able to really get in the groove with film editing on a lot of these post production projects. And when I get hyper focused, I may edit in my room for 8 to 10 hours and it'll feel like only 2 hours has passed by.
Now you kind of touched it, but I hear up here you have an addictive personality. So do you think it is a personality trait, do you think, or do you think it's a autism trait?
I don't think it's related to autism at all. I believe people are either born with addictive personalities or they're not. And I mean, I believe I was born as an alcoholic and that's not something that just happened over time. And so oftentimes with addictions, when you get sober and stuff, if it's not one addiction, it's another. And I don't think that's related to the autism at all.
Yeah, I was just thinking when I was doing research, I was wondering if it was connected because I don't really talk to too many autistic people, so I'm learning as I go through my life. So it just seems like you were talking about you being hyper focused and such. So I thought maybe some of those traits would carry into the addiction kind of personality trait, but you're saying as two separate things.
I believe it's two separate things. I believe it's closer to like a comorbidity where you're just dealing with another struggle. So, I mean, I could see why some may think it's that way. It's probably tied to it in some way, shape, or form, but I also believe it's something in a different, because a lot of autistic people don't have addiction issues.
Hmm. Well, I am learning something new today.
Yep.
So what? So I mentioned before that you're like on a cocktail of medicine to keep you like being happy and healthy and stuff. So does it limit your autism? Your autism? I'm trying to think of the word. Like, does it lessen your autism, or is it more like keeps your head on straight, or like if you're taking medicine, does it like sacrifice? Like, does it hurt you, and then like in terms of your career, like being hyper focused?
No. My medications have nothing to do with my autism. Sure, I take some stuff for anxiety, but that's related to that. And then I take some depression medication, and that's related to depression. But I mean, none of these things lessen my autism. It's not about that. It's more about my mental health and well-being and making it so most days go smoother. Sure, there's still days I get depressed. Still, there's days that I get depressed. It just makes it so it's a lot less or it doesn't feel as intense. And none of my medications are quick fixes to just like curing everything.
Of course not.
Early in mental health, like I needed more intense medications because I didn't have the strength to fight through these things myself. I needed the assistance of heavier medications just to get by. But then at a certain point in my life, after facing a lot of bad side effects, extreme weight gain, bad tremors in my hands, and honestly, I had bad tremors from head to toe. But that then made it so I couldn't hold a camera. So at a certain point when it was affecting my career, I then realized like how much more effort I need to put into my life to make my life better on top of the medications. So after many years, probably over 10 years of looking for the right medications, we finally found the right ones, and it's at a point where it's like they assist me in my daily life, but I've also gained the strength and skills to push through each day and take care of myself. So none of these things affect who I am as an autistic person.
Yeah,
It
it
just,
seemed that I made a mistake of intertwining depression and addiction and your autism into one like I guess bubble, but it's really different problems that you have.
oh yeah.
Like
Yeah,
it's like kind of like a pie, like different slices of it, and you tackled one problem with one thing, and then
yeah,
medicine for this thing, and then medicine for that. But the autism is more like it's gonna stay, but it won't go anywhere. But you can help. Depression can go away over time, but it, most of the time it doesn't. But you can like minimize it, and
yeah.
if you tackle those things, then you can focus more of your strength to focus on your autism, and then with that, and then that equals to a more steady, easier life for you. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say that. These are comorbidities. They're different struggles and disabilities within disabilities. They're not all associated. I would say the one where they're mostly tied together is the high anxiety at times. High anxiety and autism go hand in hand for me. But again, I've learned how to deal with that, or if I am being feeling anxious, I'll process it with my therapist, I'll process it with my girlfriend or my family. Oftentimes, getting reassurance helps, and so it's been it's been a long journey of kind of like trial and error. We've learned what helps me, we've learned what doesn't, and I mean, I even have a sheet of paper at home that I call like my self-regulation list. And if I start to feel like I'm going to have an autism meltdown, shutdown, burnout, then I go to this list and it gives me ideas of what I can do to cope with it. And because oftentimes when I'm in those states of mind, I can't think straight and think of these things off the top of my head. And even then, like, if I can't even think to look at the list, my girlfriend or family, they will recommend looking at it or look at it themselves and help me out with it.
We both film editors and such, and like you were talking about insurance, but at the same time, you almost can get insurance on something because, like, when you're first sitting at the computer with all this footage, you're like, how am I gonna tie this story together? And you don't really have insurance to really the end of it, but really the only opinion you can really trust is yourself. Well, I don't know about you, but like for me, like when I edit a video, I don't show it to anyone. It's like I edit it, I complete it, do one brief through, and I'd be like, okay, it's ready for the audience. And like, do you have people that like look at your work, or you just go edit and then you upload it and then just sit back and hope the audience enjoys what you created?
For the most part, I just edit on my own. I know I'm skilled at what I do, I'm confident in what I do, and I know a lot of people enjoy my work. Every now and then, like if I have a client or something, I let them do revisions. It's like if they hire me, I'll let them have 1 to 2 revisions depending on the budget. So I turn in a pretty final product to them, and then they say, well, I would like this changed or I would like that changed. But a lot of the time, they like what I've done, and there's no changes at all. So
Do you like being behind the camera, or do you like being behind a computer to edit?
depends on the sit. I mean, I probably prefer being behind the computer because I just really like the post production process, but I also like filming and being on set. So
The
it's
editing is the most brutal and time consuming part.
it is, but for me, I think that's why I'm good at it with the hyper focus and stuff. It doesn't affect me, and I know people talk about how much they hate editing and stuff, but
Yep, most would just hire people to do it for them.
I've never had that issue. I like the post production part.
I mean, it's also kind of like a control thing too, because sometimes you have like anyone like you can give the same 10 clips to like 20 people, and anybody could edit it in a totally different medium and different
Yep.
style. That like if you like, I can understand why you want to edit yourself because like if you really don't know what the next person will do, but at the same time you want to get the credit of, this is my work and this is how I do it. And since you're an editor and you get one jobs in this field, you kind of want people to know who you are and like what your style is. So like when someone hires you, they kind of
Yep.
know what they're getting themselves into.
I have a couple big post production jobs coming up in December and January. So that's nice. More and more people have been reaching out to me to do work. And then I'm also working on a new documentary myself. So we've been filming that, and we're in the final stages of filming the first part of it. And then, let's see what else. I
Well, let's
just,
go into this topic then. Like, so
yep,
filming can be very rigid of having like your list of shots and angles and following a plan, but you can also have a very loose style with improv, and you may have a vision, but depending on like the characters and the flow of the day and stuff, maybe you'll get totally different shots that you have never thought of when you first woke up. So, like, what kind of style do you like? Like, do you like a more secure, more to a plan style, or do you like a more just getting a randomness amount of shots and hopefully something builds up together?
I prefer having some sort of plan, but also it depends on what I'm shooting. If I'm filming in nature in Colorado or filming on the like skiing, filming, even like golfing, whatever it may be, a lot of it's more improvised and depends on the lighting and depends on the location. And so when I'm doing stuff outdoors or with friends like that, it's a lot more improvised because it just depends on the situation, and you may not think of a specific shot until you're at the location, and then you see like a cool looking tree or plants or whatever, and it's just like that would be a really cool shot. So you do that on the spot. And but then when
I'm
it
sure.
comes,
I'm sure when you get like on the editing board and you see both filmers, so we film like a lot, and sometimes you just forget about
yep,
shots that you took, and then I'm sure there are like at times where like when you're editing and watching like the videos the way you want to edit, and like you see some shots and you're like, holy shit, that's a really nice shot.
yep,
Like you're just so proud of it.
yeah, I there's shots where I'm very proud of them when they turn out, and it's just like I like capturing footage too of just like B-roll or when it's just like mix of seasons in Colorado, like snow with fall or snow with spring, and capturing those moments. And then I build up a portfolio of that stuff, and I end up using some of those shots for client videos in the future. And
You mean video that you took with your iPhone only?
no, I, I I don't use my iPhone much for my main camera. I end up bringing my camera almost everywhere. I have a gimbal, I have a drone, I have many tripods, I have three Lumix full frame cameras. I have,
Holy shit, that's a lot.
yeah, so, and having all those cameras has made it easy to do client videos. Like, obviously, it's nice to have other people there to help out on set, but if that's
Mm-hmm.
not in the budget, like, I having the three cameras is really nice because when doing interviews, I can set up two or three angles to make it so I have shots to cut to in post production without playing with the crop and the zoom. It's just like
You
it,
should have told me now what we should have done a three-person, three-camera angle for this podcast.
oh yeah, next time, next time.
I did it one time and I was just a huge asshole, but I was also a novice at the time.
Yeah,
And it was just a lot of work for the other person too. So I was like, I don't know. I also don't know if a person would notice as much either. So I was like, not worth it. But I'm also not like, you're like maybe like the third guest out of 80 that are in the filming world that like
yeah.
understand it kind of thing.
The other thing I did recently in film is for 6 or 8 weeks I taught. There's a there's a school in Denver called TACT, which they it's teaching autism community trades. So they teach autistic young adults how to fix cars, weld, do carpentry, stuff like that, technology stuff. They hired me for 6 to 8 weeks to teach autistic students how to do like a beginner's class to filmmaking. So that was really cool to do it from that perspective too, because I was now the teacher, and it took a week or two to get used to it, but I really had fun with it, and I think it really connected with the students, and they might have me back to teach more regularly in the future.
Filming is such a weird job thing because anyone can do it, but anyone can do it because you have like an iPhone, you have a phone in your pocket and just whip it out and you have a camera and such. But it's so much, once you start like getting deep into it, so much more work involved. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah,
And then they just think, they'll be like, oh, this is so much fun and then everything. And then once you guys start getting deeper into it and more like work of it, then you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's too much work and such. Just like, just editing alone is a lot of the that's where most of the work is really done, honestly. And
yeah,
most people just don't want to do it, so they don't even do anything at all. But that's where like it shines and like There are a lot of things in the. What's really hard is that when you watch a really well edited video, you don't even notice that much that they done because it's so weird. Like the better you are, the less they notice of how good you are.
Yeah.
But the shittier you are, the more they notice it, which really sucks. But like the only a true professional can see someone else's work and say that person did a really good job of editing and such.
Yeah, with editing, the more seamlessly done it is, or the more well done it is, the more seamless it feels. Just like you can't pick up on the errors, but the worse it is, you're just like, why wasn't that cut like half a second earlier?
Yeah.
Or why? It's just like I can really tell that, and I find because I'm a filmmaker that I analyze almost everything I watch,
Yeah,
and
it's cool to watch films and to be like, oh wow, that was a really good shot. And like my
yeah,
mom wouldn't even like even notice, but like, wow, that's a really good shot. Or sometimes
right,
I like question. But also it's cool about filming that there's so many different styles too. Like you have your style that you can be successful in. I have my style that can be totally successful.
yeah,
And you might think my work is sloppy sometimes, but maybe that's my style. And it's just so like wide range and quality that I don't know if you watch any of my videos, but I would like to get your opinion on my videos if you ever want to see a video
yeah.
together.
I'd love to. Feel free to email me some links, and I'll check it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a documentary style, but like I do vlogs and
Yeah,
such, and like it's impressive what you do, but it's also impressive what I do. I have a faster turnaround, so I make 2 videos a week,
yeah,
and the turnaround's much higher, so I have to be more quick with it.
yeah.
But I'm pretty proud of it. I think it's really great,
That's
and I
awesome.
think it's a lot better than regular people that don't have any disabilities or anything that I don't even like. Okay, like I don't I don't treat my disability as a disadvantage. In a
No,
way, it provides a disadvantage of when I'm in the field and stuff. There are many shots I would love to take, but I just can't do it because I can't physically move. But the editing wise, I think I'm higher higher skilled than a lot of people. So it's just nice to see. Like the
definitely.
only opinion I really respect are other filmmakers that like give me opinion. I'm not gonna listen to a regular person that is filmed with their iPhones.
You're
You know.
right. Especially, yeah, a lot of those people may not know what they're talking about or have the same understanding, and then when you find out the kind of films they like, you're just like, well, that's not really what we're talking about.
Hey, I mean,
So,
there are some films that were like a lot lower budget, but they were also really good too.
yeah,
And like you can't like just judge. Oh, the other thing is that you don't need 20,000 worth of equipment to make a good film either.
no,
Like it helps a lot, but sometimes it's really about the brains behind the person versus the
yeah.
equipment.
Where equipment starts to help is like oftentimes freelance work, depending on the project, because people want specific qualities or equipment for their videos. So,
Well, it
um,
just shows that like if you did come with an iPhone, it doesn't show that you're serious versus if you
right.
invest two or three
Can you,
thousand
can you
dollars worth of
imagine
stuff.
someone can you imagine someone showing up to do a wedding video and they bring two iPhones? It's just like,
I saw someone do it.
wow,
Honestly, I did. I saw it. And then the worst thing, they were using the selfie camera.
even
And I'm
worse.
like, I don't think they were like professionals. I think it was just like a regular family member. Like, we don't want to miss the wedding, so like we're gonna film it. It wasn't like professional. I don't know if they
That
were paid
that
or
I'm
anything.
good with, but the iPhone
But yeah,
commercials and stuff I hate are the ones where they show like, well, this is certain quality, and they show like film crews with the boom mic and the iPhone on the dolly. I'm just like, that would never happen, and it's just like, at least not often. I haven't seen it,
I
but
mean, the other thing that helps is the lighting. Like, if you have perfect lighting, any camera from now to 15 years ago will look really great,
yeah,
even iPhones. But as soon as the lighting changes a little bit and stuff, then you can understand
right,
like why bigger cameras works better. I
yeah,
also love that night glow to a camera too. Looks so sexy when you look at it.
yeah.
Well, let's finish it off with is your favorite film that you have filmed or documentary
My favorite
or your
documentary.
most proud work.
I think my most proud work right now is probably Thriving on the Spectrum. That one got in 20 film festivals around the world and won 5 awards. And then Autism One Man's Journey was like, I was proud to see it get noticed and kind of start my career in documentary work. It wasn't like when I look at Autism One Man's Journey and then Thriving on the Spectrum, what makes me happy about that is seeing how much growth there's been as a filmmaker and the understanding of documentaries and just yeah, I mean I like my films for different reasons. Like
Hmm.
Autism One Man's Journey was good because it had like a deeper message about late diagnosis and mental health and stuff, and it touched a lot of people's hearts. But as far as the professionalism, I like Thriving on the Spectrum a lot more. Won Best Editor for the Disability Film Challenge in 2020. So that was really cool because it got me a lot of connections at HBO and other places. So
So before I take the mic away from you, is there anything you want to say? Any words of wisdom? The winning lottery numbers? The mic is all yours.
my my words of wisdom would be if you want to pursue a career in filmmaking is it takes time to build a career. Film is a tough industry and